Bangkok now has 17 million people in it. When I first went in 1983, it had 4 million people in it. Those people are dirt poor. You've seen already with the riots in the streets between the red shirts and the yellow shirts, the fundamental clash between the very pale-skinned Chinese Thai aristocracy who own everything, and the much less Chinese and darker-skinned Thais who divide up the remaining 15% of the country. It's a very, very tense place right now, behind all the smiles and behind all the charm. And God willing, it's going to get through it without an explosion.
You'll notice the way South Africa went onto the map with the World Cup. Now, the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, is perhaps not such a big thing in this country, but it is the premier sporting event in the world. The viewership of the World Cup for the final in 2014 will be more than 1 billion people watching one soccer game, okay? And when South Africa hosted the last World Cup, I'm sure many of you must have, for the first time, had an impression about what modern South Africa is all about.
We write the books with the US and European readers in mind, to the extent that we include a little glossary and a little cast of characters with something about pronouncing the names. You don't need to read any of that stuff, but it's there, and we've actually had a little bit of criticism in South Africa. So why do you put in what a braai is? Everybody knows what a braai is. So you can't win on this one altogether. You don't know what a braai is? It's a barbecue.
The guy who named Iceland had gone there as a settler, and he was really lazy, and all of his sheep died. So he went back to Norway, and he didn't want to, say, "Oh, I was so bad at farming and fishing." So he said, "This country is horrible. It's just full of ice, and let's call it Iceland." And the guy who called Greenland, he wanted to be remembered for famous in Norway. So it was like marketing. He wanted people to move there, and he called it Greenland, and that's the true reason. But I must say one thing, that I don't know how much about the Greek situation is here on the media, but the Greeks are being treated really, really badly by the rest of Europe.
Mykonos is the #1 tourist island in Europe, essentially, and I live there. I know you're all crying to hear that. And I wanted to write my first book there. I was trying to find a way to do it, as I said, and I decided to take in the middle of this paradise where everyone makes their living to drop a serial killer. That, I thought, would have me excommunicated. That would come in the third book, when I wrote about the church. In the second book, I decided to write about politics, relationships between the Greeks and their government. And I wrote, before all these things happened, how many Greeks love their country? All of them. How many Greeks love their form of government? Most of them. How many love their politicians? None of them. Even their mistresses hate them. I think that was quoted by the current Prime Minister. So I have this ability through this writing to say these things and have my detective explore issues that were unmentionable at some point. And I am published in Greek, so it's not as if the Greeks don't know what I'm saying. I think that the essence of all that is, no matter what your character is, you don't take cheap shots at the people.
If you walk up to a felon and say, you have the right to remain silent, anything you say may be used against you, what is he going to do? He's going to clam up in 90% of the cases. Consequently, American law enforcement had to get very much involved in forensics in order to be able to nail people. Well, in Brazil, we don't have that. We have the good old-fashioned third degree.
In many cases where the defendant is of low standing, if he's innocent, you simply beat him until he's guilty. There is, in fact, a Vietnamese phrase for that, "pang po," which comes out of the Vietnam War. And it's used widely in third world countries. Policing itself in Thailand is extremely complicated because Thailand is so complicated.
Talking about Greenland.
East coast of Greenland, there's nothing green, not a single thing. There's no soil, there's nothing, it's rocks. People tend to live. It's really the most depressive place you can imagine. And you think, when you look at the people, you can say, okay, they came from Asia. So they must have walked all the way over Canada or whatever and somehow gotten over to Greenland. And when they finally reached the East Coast, the Atlantic takes over and they got stuck there in the worst place in the world. I mean, what kind of luck is that?
We spent a lot of time with policemen in Botswana. It's not too different from the South African, current South African model, and it's not too different from the Western model because it's inherited from the British colonial days.
I think that when you're talking about how you make use of a setting, I think it's really important to realize that however exotic it is and however amazing it all looks to you, to people who are there, it's just Tuesday.